Hello, everybody. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a business leader. I'm a journalist, unfortunately. My job is to read about, to write about, to know about, and to collect data on all of the real estate marketplaces around the world. There are, last time I counted, about 900 active real estate marketplaces around the world, and I've got a lot of data on them. And that data is pretty good at helping us to kind of give broad generalizations. And generalizations can be pretty useful. And hopefully the generalization that I'm going to talk about today can be useful to some people in this room. It's centered around this graph, the crux of what I'm going to talk about today. All of these big real estate marketplace leaders have kind of hit the ceiling in terms of the number of agent customers that they have. Notwithstanding that orange line there from Scout24. Scout24, by the way, market leader in Germany. It looks like it's going up now. We'll revisit it later. But the point is they've hit their ceilings a little bit when it comes to the number of agent customers that they can have, right? And that's an issue. I mean, these are publicly traded entities and publicly traded real estate portals. They're kind of like sharks, right? If they stop growing, if they stop swimming, they're going to die. So we're going to talk about some of these ways that they get around or mitigate the customer number ceilings. The first one we'll go on to now. It's the most boring one. We'll spend the least amount of time on it. I promise we'll get to the start of the show as quickly as possible. One way that some real estate marketplace businesses are, I won't say getting around the ceiling, they're pretending the ceiling doesn't exist. So this is Rightmove. I think we've had about 5 or 6 people in this conference already use Rightmove as an example. It's for a good reason. It's a really interesting business. These are Rightmove's financials. As you can see, they go up like clockwork every year. Rightmove is really famous for that pink line there. That pink line is ARPA, average revenue per agent. Basically, what this graph is telling us is that Rightmove, its tactic is to charge more every year, apart from obviously the worst of the pandemic. Now, this isn't a particularly sustainable thing. We'll just acknowledge that this is one thing that one company does to avoid or mitigate or pretend that the ceiling doesn't exist, and move on to something a little bit more interesting with a kind of cool name. Another way that real estate marketplace businesses mitigate or get around the issue of hitting customer number ceilings is they change their model a bit. They get into the transaction. We always talk at these conferences about getting into the transaction. Broadly, there are 2 ways of doing that. One of them has this kind of cool name, Next Gen Lead Gen. People have mentioned it before. Basically, what we're talking about is a real estate marketplace generates a lead for an agent. So far, so good, so normal, right? But then they qualify it. They qualify the lead to the extent that the agent doesn't have to kind of chase tire kickers or qualify the lead themselves, right? And in return, they get a slice of the commission. So in the US here, where it's practiced by Realtor.com and Zillow, it's typically 25 to 35% of what the agent earns. So 25 to 35% of the kind of 5 to 6% of the value of the house. And it's seen by a lot of people as like this, the future of real estate marketplaces here in the US. And it certainly has its pros, right? If you are into the commission, you have a higher margin. You can work with fewer customers, so the issue of the ceiling kind of isn't there for you. And you have more control over your customers. Zillow actually admitted, they actually came out and said in their latest, I think their latest Q1s, Rich Barton was saying, we know we have more control over our customers doing this. But there are some cons as well. You need obviously very robust tracking to do this. You don't get paid immediately. You might generate a lead for an agent and not get paid for 6 months. So you've got to have your balance sheet's got to be able to withstand that. And it's not really making the big bucks yet. I think there was a lot of noise made about this particular model when it first came out. It got, the sexy name, Next Gen Lead Gen. But as you can see from the graph there, it's a bit flat. That's not to say it won't work out eventually. Zillow certainly believes in this way of doing things. In fact, last week, they launched markets number 5 and 6, where they only do this way of working. So I think basically the jury's out on this. It's pretty nice. It does okay, but we'll kind of wait and see how it goes. The other way that real estate marketplaces get into the transaction or get into the commission is by just being a brokerage from the start. These are what I call transactional thoroughbreds. We just had one of them on stage, Loft. The easiest example I can probably give is Redfin here in the US. Redfin, we all know, is a brokerage, right? But it's also the number 3 real estate discovery site in America. And that's the kind of archetype. But these companies exist everywhere. You've got Baker in China, companies like Faswas and Juai IQI in Southeast Asia, Loft, Quinto Andar. A lot of them, by the way, exist in emerging markets. They're really interesting companies, but these are companies that started off in transactional revenue streams and then built traffic, built listings to the point where they can be considered kind of a discovery site. And in doing that, they've kind of mitigated the issue of their agent customer number ceilings because it was never an issue for them to even begin with, right? However, they don't have it all their own way. Me talking about this as like a possible solution to the agent number issue at Rightmove is redundant because if you're Rightmove, you can't become a brokerage. You can go from brokerage to marketplace, but you can't go from marketplace to brokerage. It just can't happen. Why? Because your agents are going to accuse you of stabbing them in the back. It happens. I mean, I'd say probably twice a year I write up an article about a bunch of agents complaining that their leading portal is trying to be a brokerage. It happens all the time. And even if you are a transactional thoroughbred and you were a brokerage from the beginning, it's not all smooth sailing anyway. These companies are often kind of accused of monopolistic shenanigans. There's an example there from Baker in China. And they're not, no one really knows how to regulate them because they're quite new in terms of the model. So Quinto Andar, as you can see from that bottom headline, recently had, let's just call it a panic about whether they were allowed to charge a 2% service fee. No one really knew. There wasn't really regulation for it. So it's not all smooth sailing for a transactional thoroughbred, let's say. Another way, maybe a more common way to mitigate hitting the ceiling in terms of your agent customers is to get into adjacent revenue streams. I'm sure everyone in the audience, no matter what kind of marketplace you run, you probably are either in adjacent revenue streams or you're thinking about it. What you're looking at on screen now are on the top there. These are all the adjacent revenue streams that the 55 leading real estate portals around the world were into when we studied them in 2021. As you can see, mortgages is very popular. And on the bottom there, the number of portal acquisitions in adjacent businesses and the declared money spent on those acquisitions. That pink line, by the way, is probably at least double because not everyone tells you how much they spend, right? This slide is to say adjacent revenue streams are pretty popular. But for me, yeah, the jury's still out, I guess. These are really competitive markets, things like mortgage, where you're competing against really established, entrenched players. And an example of that is on the bottom, Zillow Mortgages, not really very profitable. In fact, as of Q1, Zillow stopped telling the market how profitable its mortgages segment was because it's a bit embarrassing for them, basically. The other thing we found, by the way, from our 2021 study was that real estate marketplace businesses tend not to go very deep into adjacent revenue streams. What they tend to do is build a landing page, generate a lead for a third party, and sell it. They don't tend to go that deep. They also don't really break out their adjacent revenue streams in their reporting. So that top graph there, the average percentage of total revenue from adjacent revenue streams, it's only about 3%, or it was when we did the study. But that top graph is based on pretty thin data because no one really tells us. Maybe it's because their adjacent revenue streams aren't a big part of their business, or maybe it's because it's just not very profitable and they don't want to tell the market. Either way, adjacent revenue streams, they're okay, but maybe not the silver bullet. Before we get onto the star of the show, I want to talk about this, the vendor's wallet. Not just a good name for a pub, it's actually a way that some real estate marketplace businesses circumvent the issue of hitting their customer number ceiling simply by how their local market works. So what you're looking at on the bottom, Hemnet is the leading real estate portal in Sweden, and that's the average revenue per listing. And over 2 years, it doubled, which is incredible. And on the top there, that's Hemnet unit economics compared to some other market leaders. Now, the reason that Hemnet is allowed to do this, or can do this, I should say, is because if you sell your house in Sweden, you are the one that pays the real estate portal. Whereas in most other markets around the world, the agent pays the real estate portal. If you, as a seller, pay the real estate portal, you probably only sell your home every, 10, 15 years. You probably don't track how much it costs. You probably don't band together with other sellers to complain to the real estate portal. But if you're an agent and you pay the real estate portal every month, you absolutely do complain, you absolutely do band together. What this means is that companies like Hemnet and companies in Australia And apparently Jordan as well, someone was telling me. Yeah, apparently this works like this in Jordan as well. Basically, you can up your prices a lot more often. Suffice to say, there's a lot of real estate portals in other markets that don't work like this, that are very jealous. And rumor has it, there's some real estate portals looking at how they can get into the vendor's wallet. We won't go into it because it's just rumors. We'll move on. So these are the growth levers that we've looked at and some of the problems with them. Just to recap, sorry about the formatting, by the way, guys. Pretending the ceiling doesn't exist. It's working for Rightmove. I mean, I've been criticizing Rightmove here, but it's a very successful business. Many cleverer people than me have made money on it. But I don't think just charging your users more every year for the same thing is sustainable. Getting into the transaction, we always talk about it at these conferences. Broadly speaking, there's two ways that people do it. Charging a commission, next gen, lead gen, nice enough if you've got the tech to track it. Maybe not kicked off yet, but definitely people still see a lot of potential in it. Certainly Zillow does. And then there's being a transactional thoroughbred. But if you aren't a transactional thoroughbred from the beginning, it's not going to work out for you. People are going to complain that you're taking their lunch. Adjacent revenue streams, very competitive. Unless you go all in, you're kind of unlikely to do more than just supplement your business, probably, from what we can tell. And then the vendor's wallet, well, bad luck unless you're in Australia, Sweden, or Jordan. Changing the market's really hard. Okay, we're on to the star of the show. By the way, spoiler alert, it's charging the end user. Now, if I'd have said charging the end user is what real estate portals, what I believe real estate portals should be doing, it may have been a bit controversial. But what has changed in our lives in that time more than convenience products and subscriptions? I actually just got a text before I went on stage saying that I've just paid for Amazon Prime. I forgot I was paying for it, so that's a perfect example. We've all got subscriptions that we've forgotten about, right? And we all like convenience products. This is some examples. That one at the top there, Soylent, that's apparently for people with no taste buds. That is a drink that will fulfill all of your nutritional needs. You don't need to eat ever again. That is proof, if any were needed, that convenience products are here to stay, right? That exists. Glovo, one of the millions of delivery apps. And then, kind of closer to home for the people in this room at least, Kazoo and its American kind of cousin, Carvana, and Open Door. iBuying is a convenience product at the end of the day. And these convenience products, I think it should be the real estate portals that do them, right? As we've seen, everyone's got loads of subscriptions. It's not like you have to change user behavior. People already pay loads of subscriptions. And when we talk, or when I think about convenience products in real estate, what we're kind of thinking about is bundling lots of services around the transaction, right? And to do that, you probably need partnerships with third-party service providers. And I can tell you, at least once a week, I have to write a really boring article saying that Portal X has partnered with service provider Y to provide service Z, right? We know that real estate portals have deep connections, deep partnerships with these third-party service providers around transacting homes. There's loads of them. When we think about convenience products in real estate, the other thing I was kind of thinking was, would real estate portals have to fundamentally change their relationship with the consumer? You think, well, real estate portals don't normally monetize the consumer, but actually, they sort of do. We did a study this year on FSBO listings, for sale by owner listings. And the upshot of it was that we found that about half of the real estate portals out there have some kind of FSBO product. So they do kind of already have a monetary relationship with the end user in most cases. And then just, if not real estate portals, then who, right? Portals have this most amazing brand power. I've got a spreadsheet somewhere where every time I see a real estate portal brand name used as a verb, I put it on there. There's 8 of them on there. We all say, like, I'm going to Rightmove my house. I'm going to Zillow my house. When your brand is a verb, you've won, right? You might as well not have a marketing department. You've done it, right? So that's my case for real estate portals and convenience products. There are some already out there in the world of kind of, well, maybe not real estate marketplaces, but real estate in general. One Dome in the UK, Just Move In at the bottom there. They presented at our Madrid conference in the Pitch Club. I think, did they win it? I can't remember if they won it, but they're a really interesting company. They've bundled services. I think they said they've got like 30 different services all on one back end for the user. Why a real estate portal hasn't tried to acquire them, I don't know. Then you've got, in Russia, there was Ciana doing one, or they certainly did one. I don't know if they still do. RentPay in Australia, and the star of the show, Scout24, the market leader in Germany, they've got 3 real estate convenience products. They've got one for buyers, they've got one for landlords, and they've got one for renters, which is the one on screen there, Miete Plus. And it's pretty impressive. It's pretty interesting. This is what you get if you pay for Miete Plus. By the way, I think the last time I looked, you pay between, I think, 13 euros and 30 euros, depending on the length that you want it for. But this is what you get. You get things like discounts on storage, moving boxes, emergency keys, things from third parties. But you also get things that Scout can provide as a market-leading marketplace. So your inquiries go to the top of the landlord's inboxes. And really importantly, I'm sure I don't need to tell a room full of marketplace executives how important this is, you get to contact some exclusive ads earlier, right? So it seems pretty appealing. And it works financially. The private segment, so these convenience products, are the fastest growing segment in Scout's business. And it's very, very, very profitable for them. But more importantly, in my opinion, than that bottom graph is that top graph. Scout24's dependence on agents is reducing all the time. And this, you'll remember the orange line from slide number 3. It looked like Scout's agent numbers were going up, but that was in the context of other real estate portals. In this context, it's flat. This is the slide that convinced me that this is the future, by the way. That blue line, private subscribers, there's nearly 350,000 of them. That's 350,000 end users that didn't used to have a monetary relationship with Scout that now do. It's pretty impressive. We did all the cons of all the other ways around the ceiling, so we'll do the cons of this way as well. Obviously, Scout24 had to pay a lot of money to acquire a lot of this stuff. They had to put in loads of development hours, and they had to kind of change their paradigm as a business of like, who are we, who are our customers? But it seems to have worked out for them, right? Okay, if you've been looking at your phones, that's fine. But this is the slide you should pay attention to, in my opinion. Convenience is in demand, we all know that. Housing is very inconvenient. I actually had a slide saying housing is inconvenient. I took it out because it's so obvious. Housing is the least convenient thing pretty much in the world. The logic goes, therefore, that eventually someone will make lots of money productizing housing and making it convenient. I believe that should be real estate marketplace businesses. I believe they are ideally placed. They have amazing brand power. By the way, the last slide is the cringy slide, the like and subscribe slide. If you like anything that you've seen today, please do read our stuff, sign up to our newsletter. We really hope you like our content. Thank you.
Ed, thanks for that. Particular context in Germany, supply, shortage of supply is leading Scout to monetize that. Not sure if that sort of convenience is monetizable in other countries. What's your thoughts?
I don't know of any real estate market around the world where supply is not short. I receive an ungodly amount of press releases from all of you people, from your departments, your content departments saying supply is short around the world. So I don't know who Anonymous is and where their market is, and if they've got loads of supply in that market, but from what I see, supply is tight everywhere.
Okay. Do you feel that adjacent revenue streams have not worked as expected in most cases due to execution?
The first thing I would say about this is, guys, I'm a journalist. I don't know anything about business. But I think quite possibly, I think the issue with Zillow, it's going a bit better for them in these 6 markets where they're just doing things differently because basically they didn't integrate it properly from the start. Possibly is the answer to that one.
Okay. I'll
find you.
Just an example of how hard it is to do it. We'll take mortgage business. I'll take the REA group in Australia, or realestate.com.au. There, if you look at the revenue breakdowns, mortgages are roughly maybe 3 to 5% if you're lucky of their revenues, because as much as it's an ancillary revenue stream to get into, the thing is this is their 3rd attempt at doing it. We did it once when I was there back in 2006 with REA home loans. Then we closed that down because we rapidly realized that running a marketing business and running a mortgage broker are actually really different, okay? And we were rapidly brought back to ground on what we could do with that. So we sold what we'd built in Trailbook and moved on. They then tried it again about 8 years ago, maybe, called, once again, REA Home Loans. And once again, it failed to get momentum, and now they've just basically gone and bought a large mortgage broker.
Yeah, portals are addicted to mortgage. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, and it's the fundamental belief that, oh, I've got lead gen, I can do it and monetize it. But it's actually far more complex. And I'm not convinced that the consumer thinks about it the same way as the portal thinks about it, which goes back to other conversations we've had today, is really understand your customer and what they're doing. Someone is definitely going to find you. Why do Scout's private subscribers constantly go up? Do people keep their subscription after moving in?
I don't suppose people do keep their subscription after moving in. That's not a detail that they release for people like me looking at it. Why does it keep going up? I think because we want it. I'm actually moving house this weekend when I get back, and it's a pain. Moving house is a pain. If you can package, I keep saying bundle services. If you can bundle all the services that you need and just have it on one back end. So the reason I kind of wanted to show this is because me as a journalist, I recognize that I don't know the ins and outs of running one of these businesses, but it feels really strange to me that one business has done it and it's successful and no one else seems to be doing it. I'm sure people will come up and find me and tell me why it won't work in their market. I had that before in Madrid. People came up and told me why it wouldn't work.
Okay, and then finally, can you expand on your thoughts about commoditizing real estate?
Oof. I think just fundamentally, right? Pretty much everything else in our lives has been commoditized and made into a product, and I think real estate's pretty much the last great thing to be commoditized and productized. Someone will eventually do it. Just by the laws of average, someone will do it. And my point here is, I think that should be real estate portals for all the different reasons, but mainly because they just have this amazing brand power. If not them, then who, right? Yeah, it's just a pain moving house. Someone needs to fix it, and it should be real estate marketplace businesses. Now, for those of you in other marketplace niches, you could probably do a convenience product for cars or for anything else, right? I just don't really understand from an outsider perspective why people aren't doing it more.
There are convenience products.
Yeah, there are, yeah.
Cars, right? They're subscription-based models to get access to cars. They've basically taken the fundamental issue of I need a car to go from A to B, which traditionally meant I had to go buy a car, own it, service it, maintain it, and they've make that into various subscription-based models so that now I can go pick up with I don't know, that Bolt or whatever it is, right? I can go and then get a car for the next 2 hours to go do a job that I need, and then I don't care about it, right? It gets serviced, gets cleaned, and it's not my problem. And I can do that on a subscription basis. So I think in motoring, it's already happening in a far more convenient way. Ed, thanks very much.
Thank you,
Always
Simon.
good to hear your insights. Fantastic. Thank you.